3 weeks may seem like it's been a lot longer, but it was just 3 weeks ago today that a pair of bombs exploded near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. Today, two pieces of bombing-related news as one of the three young men arrested last week for apparently trying to hinder the investigation is released on bail. This while debate rages in Boston and far beyond about what should be done with the body of the bombing suspect killed in that wild shootout with police.
The ruling was issued this afternoon, a judge deciding to grant bail for Robel Filipos, accused of lying to authorities about the investigation into his friend, the surviving Boston terror suspect Tamerlan Tsarnaev. Filipos was released on a $100,000 bond on the condition he remain on home confinement and wear an electronic monitoring bracelet. Filipos' lawyer described the teen as frightened and confused.
At no time did Robel have any prior knowledge of this marathon bombing.
He does face up to 8 years for his alleged role in hampering the investigation. The only other named suspect, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, died in a police shootout. Today, protests continue against the idea that his body may rest forever in Massachusetts. According to Muslim tradition, the body should be buried, but there is no cemetery in the state that seems willing. The Cambridge city manager urged the family not to make such a request. The funeral director has maintained a sense of obligation, but even he seems tired of the uncertainty.
You can't just walk away from this. I've taken care of the responsibilities I have. Now the responsibility comes that we have to bury a dead person.
Meanwhile, a Massachusetts activist today announced plans to raise money to ship the body to Dagestan.
Let's get this resolved. I feel good about contributing $500 to this cause.
Catherine Russell, the widow of Tamerlan, has returned to her maiden name and relinquished all rights to his body. Her lawyer says she was unaware of her husband's alleged activities. Investigators continue to watch her very closely.
Which brings us to the question for our panel, and that we also asked you online tonight: should the Boston bomber Tamerlan Tsarnaev be buried in the United States? We got a lot of reaction. A couple of them want to read for you now. Troy Parrish wrote into us, "I'm sorry, but this is a non-issue. He's dead. Treat his remains the same as anyone else's remains." And Minervo Luego Reyes said he gave up his right to a proper burial as a U.S. citizen when he decided to kill and maim as many of his fellow citizens as possible. I'm curious. Look, this is not the most important debate that we're going to have related to the Boston bombings, but what do you guys think about this? Should we treat his body any differently because of what he did?
No.
What do you mean by no?
I think that, look, I grew up outside of Boston. My mother and cousins were at the race just a few blocks from there. And I know a lot of people, actually an employee of mine, a friend of his, lost a leg. It's hard not to be upset about this still. People will continue to be upset about it, and we should be, because it's a horrible, horrible thing that happened. However, funerals are for families for the most part. They're not for the dead. He's gone, and we know where he went, and that should be it. And by making this more of an issue now, we're sort of giving him a weird kind of power in death. And I don't like that.
That's what my immediate reaction was: do what you do with anybody in combat. Yeah. Give him back to the original country, and that's there. The thing I don't love about that concept right now is he then could be more of a martyr back there, and somebody could write a check and say, "I'll take care of it." They make some big pomp and circumstance out of it. And I would hate to see that become of it. At the same point, Catholic high school, Catholic college, it is a sacrament in the Catholic religion, the actual burial itself and so forth. So I think there's some things to be said about, no matter what someone's religion is, to respect that and figure out what can be done. What I would say is whatever it is should not be something public, should not be something covered by the cameras, and should not be a marked grave that, whether it's Jim Morrison grave site or anybody else, that becomes somewhere people can go to and make it any kind of attraction.
Yeah.
Well, we know it's against Muslim tradition to cremate the body. That would be the easy way to deal with this. I can understand how the people of Massachusetts feel about this. I can understand that they can't get a single cemetery to take his remains so far in the state of Massachusetts, and they're reaching out to the governor's office. I mean, if you're the cemetery, you're going to be vandalized. People are going to come in, they're going to attack it, they're going to disrupt the property. So I can understand that. I don't have the answer.
Yeah,
maybe
I'm not sure that
the
majority of Bostonians want to talk about this guy second longer, though. And they want to make sure that his brother is prosecuted for what he did, and they care about that. But what they want to do is move on and not give this guy more power by making him martyr.
They need closure.
If his brother is convicted and executed, which is there's still a possibility if they seek the death penalty, we could have the same debate all over again. It just seems like I don't recall there being this big debate with Timothy McVeigh.
I was just going to say the same thing occurred.
Yeah.
And maybe this is me going a little too far on this, but there are times when in reaction to events, we tend to lose ourselves a little bit. Mm-hmm. We tend to overreact just because of the horror of things that happened. Am I wrong in thinking that this debate, this whole, I mean, there were people holding signs outside the funeral home saying, we'll dig him up.
If this was New York, why not Potter's Field, an unmarked grave? They put a number on it. No one knows the difference. I mean, I'm sure in Massachusetts they got the same type of thing. If the body's not claimed over a period of time,
every place has to have a Potter's Field. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, Andrew. You said, you know, maybe you're overreacting. Maybe you are, because I mean, how would you feel if you were one of those young people with your entire life ahead of you, like the dancer, for example, and now she's missing part of her leg? I mean,
no, I understand that,
but we can't just dismiss that like it never happened. I mean,
and the feelings aren't invalid. I don't think anybody here is saying that those feelings are invalid. Those are perfectly valid feelings, and they should have those. But look, if this is a government question, which is, I guess, what we're talking about here, and whether or not the federal government is going to step in and actually deport his body, basically, then no, we're not going to do that.
I guess I'm just saying that we can't change who we are in reaction to these events, however horrible they may be. We have to maintain the core elements that make us the country that we are. And that plays into this next element of the story also, which, you know, as the investigation continues, we're learning more about possible motivations and influences behind the bombings and the bombers. Several reports now linking the bombers to the works of Anwar al-Awlaki, a radical American-born Muslim cleric who later moved to Yemen. He was killed by a drone strike by the U.S. But his sermons and his anti-American rants, like the one we're showing you, remain available online and elsewhere on the web, leading some to wonder if those videos should either be removed from the web or if just accessing them should be considered grounds for an investigation or even monitoring people. And again, to me, as despicable as the things this guy says, I don't like the idea of abridging people and taking... Go ahead.
Free speech ends at the time of yelling fire in a crowded theater. Wouldn't this be the same thing? I'm not a lawyer, but if you figure out what that case pertains to, specifically and what he's allowed to do for free speech, if he's inciting riots, inciting activities that are... Maybe you go through his online videos and you take out half of them or whatever the percentage is that is totally inappropriate. If he's speaking about certain things that are appropriate, fine, but anything that crosses that line, it should be pulled down.
Call me the conservative of the panel tonight. To answer your questions, yes and yes. Pull down the videos. Why does anyone need to see that? What's the purpose of it?
But then who makes the call as to what's acceptable and what's not?
Well, we're talking about the internet, so this is almost a moot question, moot point, right? Because it rears its ugly head, terrorism and these hateful things that people come up with everywhere. And they always have a conduit for it. And I agree, though, however, what we need to be doing, right, is tracking this in some way. Now, that doesn't mean that we're at everybody's homes all the time, but I'm a little bit more of a conservative than a liberal on this point. I'm totally fine with the FBI having the tools it needs.
Let me ask, if you watch the video, if you click on the video, is that enough for the NSA to open a file or for the FBI to investigate? I mean, if so, I got our editors in trouble. So
I mean, you're saying legally? Yes, it is legally. I mean, look, people, you don't think that the FBI, the NSA has files on people that go to a rally and are just standing in the crowd, next to a burning American flag?
I think it was Illinois that was just arrested. The U.S. government set up a sting where you thought you were subscribing to do something terrorist related here in the U.S. and the FBI was really behind the website.
Yeah. But that's you want some deeper level of involvement other than just watching a video. I'm a little uncomfortable going after people for watching videos.
There's a line of free speech
and tracking.
There's a line of free speech that you can't cross, right? We all know that. Whatever that is, we know it when we see it. He's crossed it. If you can't take it off online, you figure out some way to mark it and say, in the United States, you can't do this. It's unacceptable.
Just have YouTube. YouTube pulls down videos each and every day. Pull it down, end of story. Why are we giving these individuals much more attention than they deserve? They don't deserve the attention that they're getting. YouTube, pull it down, that's it.
If it's only on YouTube. If it's on
Right,
sites we can't
right.
control,
Then it becomes
then
another
you go
issue.
overseas,
Right.
you go offshore,
If somebody's
who knows
spending a lot of their time seeking out this kind of material, they're probably talking about it too, and that's probably raising to the level of maybe somebody should tell the authorities about it. That's what we need to be doing, is not just calling in every little thing we see, but when there's a credible threat there, to make sure people know about it and to follow up. That's what we need to do. And that's really the only way to start fighting this stuff before it turns into a tragedy like this.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Up next, we've got an example of stop and frisk actually working. Does that lead to an argument in favor of the practice? We're going to get into that next.